I'm Anand Hulani from Orders Burnson, India. I'm very excited to welcome to this webinar, Aerospace X Factor, Discovering India's Unique Proposition. This is the first installment of our Global Aerospace X series, where we harness the best across the globe and also explore markets across the world. And today we would be discussing India. Before we start, some pre-takeoff announcements. This session is being recorded. Towards the end of our discussion today, we would give an opportunity to our viewers to ask questions. Since the chat function is disabled, please put your questions in the Q&A box. This should be on your screen. We will also collect them and share them towards the end of our session. I'm part of Orders Burnson Industrial Practice, and I focus on the aerospace and defense sector for India. To moderate this session, I have my co-host and colleague Mercedes Legrand, partner and head of aerospace, defense, and national security practice, Orders Burnson US. And for the event of the day, we have an esteemed panelist to discuss about the A&D sector in India and South Asia in terms of development, talent landscape, which is not only propelling local growth, but also setting global narrative within the larger ecosystem. Let me go ahead and introduce our panel for today. We have with us Jetendra Gavankar, CEO Safran India, Suraj Chettri, Vice President, Head HR Site Lead, Airbus India, South Asia, Ajay Sharma, Executive Director HR, Boeing India and South Asia, retired Air Marshal GS Bedi, a defense expert who is currently advising Synergy Quantum as Vice President Business Development for Air Force. Thank you all for joining us. I would now request each panelist to spend a minute or two to introduce themselves and the lens they bring to this discussion. Let me start with you, Jetendra.
Hey, thanks. So I come from a varied background. In fact, I myself sometimes confused with so much of God-given experience in the aerospace and defense domain. So I just have a bit of background on strategy and business development. I have a couple of years on the core R&D, and which ranges from product development to system integration, and spanning over now 33 years. Out of which 24 years I was with the Indian Air Force as an engineer doing multiple jobs, including MRO and procurement. And I have spent about a dozen years with defense R&D with an Indian organization called DRDO. I was the deputy project director for an air-to-air missile. I was the project engineer for avionics upgrade on the Sukhoi. And on my corporate career, I started with setting up the defense business for an Indian conglomerate called Adani when they entered into this domain of defense. Followed by a short stint with Honeywell India as director engineering for aeromechanical systems, and then at Safran Helicopter Engines as managing director for India. And current appointment of mine is CEO Safran India, where I look after the entire strategic development for Safran in the country from a long-term perspective. So this is my brief on my experience.
Thanks, Jetendra. Suraj, may I ask you to go next?
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me over. Suraj Chettri, my career comes in bits and pieces. The first bit that I would talk about is I worked with Bosch for about 7 to 8 years, out of which 2 years as an assignment in Germany. Then came back and started heading General Motors Technology Center here in Bangalore in India. And then for the last 20 years, I've been in aerospace. The first company that I worked for was Textron, where I was the joint managing director responsible for the operations. And here, I not only take care of HR for India and South Asia, but I'm also responsible as my night operations as the head of the center for the Bangalore operations, which has about 3,600 employees, because I just counted all the heads today. Thank you.
Thanks, Suraj. Ajay, you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Anand. Hi, everyone. Ajay Sharma. I lead the HR function for Boeing India. I'm based out of Bangalore. My total experience, of course, cuts across different domains, across aerospace and defense for Boeing. Prior to that, I worked with GE for 7 years and was working across different GE businesses, but predominantly in the energy and the power generation sector. And prior to that, I've worked in a few other organizations, the last one prior to GE being SAP. Most of my experience has been across different elements of the HR function, HR business partnering, various COE jobs. But I guess the most interesting thing for me in this forum, I would say, is that I like to call myself an aircraft geek. It's not just because of Boeing, but Boeing is the high point for me. But throughout my life, I've always been obsessed with anything which is related to aircrafts. I come from a military background in the sense my father was in the army and many generations before him. So there is a strong linkage with defense there. And the best part I find about this journey in Boeing is that when I joined, we were like around 800 odd people. And 6.5 years thereafter, we are around 8 times more. So close to around 6,500 people across India. So India would be the largest country in terms of headcount for Boeing after US. Of course, the gap between US and India is huge, but amongst the non-US countries, India is the largest in terms of headcount for Boeing.
Excellent. We are go for launch. I would now request Mercedes to take over.
I'm going to turn it over first to Air Marshal Bedi.
Oh,
I don't
sorry.
think he
Apologies.
had it. Yeah, sorry, and I don't think he had a chance to introduce himself.
Go ahead, Mr.
No
Bedi.
problem. Good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm Air Marshal GS Bedi. I retired in April 22 after about 38 years of active service and 40 years if you count the training period as well. I flew MiG-21s and Mirage 2000 and have close to about 4,000 hours on these aircraft combined. And I've held certain positions, which gave me quite an operational edge, like Assistant Chief of Air Staff Offensive Operations, which gave me an insight into that what does it take to fight a war and win a war. Okay, and I myself took part in our Kargil operation, which took place, and I've seen it from very close. What was there, what should have been there, and what can be there. I have done tenures in all terrains of India, which is, plains, desert, the mountainous terrain, and in very, very high and responsible positions. Again, I know the gaps. So I think from when you transition from armed forces to the civil industry, or, you're advising certain industry, then it's important to know that what are the gaps and how do you help the industry to fill that gap. And I was also fortunate to be in London for 3 years as air advisor at the High Commission of India, London, where I got to know a different perspective, meeting with different nationalities and seeing how things work. And currently I'm advising why, it advertises I'm mostly with Synergy Quantum. They work on post-quantum encryption, which is again a very, very interesting field. And I do have an insight into space technology and advising one company involved in space products, and also to an extent drones and anti-drone operations. So that gives me quite an insight into overall, ecosystem of Indian Armed Forces as to what is happening and what should people be looking at and where exactly for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, GS Bedi. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Mercedes.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to add my thanks to Anand. We sincerely appreciate each of you taking your time to do this this evening in India. And also thank you to our guests who are watching. Just want to give a quick shout out. Happy birthday, Sam. You know who you are. Who's watching this today. But I'm really excited to be kicking off this X Factors series with India. There's so many changes happening across the globe. And, in India in particular. So we know that there's been a tremendous increase in passenger air travel in India that is expected to continue for the next several years at least. The industry in India is maturing, is expanding to respond to that, and to some other things, defense partnerships and things. India is on a journey to being capable of doing final assembly in India for manufacturing. There are capability centers that are being created, opportunities for to develop stronger MRO capabilities. We know that that's needed around the globe, and India is a very central location there that makes sense. And then also just due to supply chain constraints and other parts of the globe, India is a very attractive supply chain partner. So there's so many forces that are causing change and opportunity in India, and I know these are the things that our guests today are really curious about. So let's start our discussion, if we can, around technology. Air Marshal Bedi, you mentioned that you are involved with a lot of these advanced technologies, drones and other things like that. There's as industry overall becomes more digital, aerospace and defense is a part of that as well. We see space startups happening across the globe, including in India. So tell me about, how is technology innovation and advanced technology capabilities from your Air Force lens? What are the most significant innovations that are happening right now in India?
Thank you, Mercedes. One could get carried away and I could hog all your time, but I will just try to, keep it crisp. What happens is now, before saying, what is happening in India, it's important to know how much is happening. That is, what is the quantum we are looking at? Okay. And if we have to go by certain statements that, by Honorable Raksha Mantri, like a defense minister, he just said that he's expecting or he's aiming at export potential. That means the produce that is happening here to be exported worth some 50,000 crore rupees translates to about $7 billion. And if you go to our production or statistics of 31st March 24, then it's almost $20 billion. Now, the point is, I don't know how many $1 billion are more attractive than, how many billion. But the ultimate aim, if we look at it, is what are we aiming at? How many $1 billion is just a question of statistics. We have to keep in mind that ultimately, what is India building this capability for? India is aiming to close the gap with whom? It's aiming to close the gap with China, both in terms of quality as well as quantity in some time. Okay, so if we have that in mind and see that what can be done in India, then that gives you perspective that how much can be done in India. And when we come to technologies, Army itself, just one arm of the armed forces, is looking at 230 future-ready defense technologies. Now, that is a lot. And if I have to just draw the landscape briefly, like if we talk of space, you talk of innovative, there is opportunity in innovative payloads. We have small satellite launch vehicles coming up. Propulsion systems need, investment. There is launch on demand. There are reusable rockets being looked at. Okay, and infusion of artificial intelligence in analysis. It's just not procuring images or supplying those images. It is how to analyze them, change detection. We are looking at very low Earth orbits, hyperspectral satellites, and also near space. It's now where aircraft stopped going, about 20 kilometers, and your satellites started at 600 kilometers. And even if you take VLEO, it's about 200. So there is a lot of space in between. A lot of things we are looking there. Okay. When you come to cyber, like quantum, I'm sure people will touch, but we are looking at cyber security because everything of tomorrow rides on cyber. If your cyber is not secure, then it's of no use. And, this post-quantum security, why it becomes important, because now, your Air Force, Army, Navy may have their dedicated networks. Nobody can penetrate, nobody can trouble me. But what happens about my banking sector, about infrastructure, about, road networks, about so many other things. So if all those get infected or targeted, then who exactly am I going to protect? So it's important that, all these things need to be looked after, which are a part. Then UAV, we are looking at, I think, a lot of opportunities there in anti-UAV, domain, where they're looking at RF handling, GPS, laser, hard kill options, etc., etc. Radars, very important, to detect UAVs. There is a lot of opportunity in India, and our startups are struggling to get to that. Hypersonics, another field. We are looking at scramjet engines technology to come up. Okay. And, then another very interesting thing which has come up is your E function, that is electrical propulsions, in vertical takeoff and landing, in short takeoff and landing. Our terrains are, very, very specific. More of it I can cover later if there is a time. But all these things, they need opportunity, and most of them, interestingly, are dual use. I personally feel that for any technology to mushroom, if it has a dual use capability, then it has much more, chance. We have colleagues from Boeing and Airbus and Safran. The aircraft started with military application, right? Now, just imagine if aircraft were only for military application and there was no civil use of aircraft, then I don't know how much aviation industry would have grown. And same thing into satellites. Satellites started with military application and there were hardly any earth imaging satellites. But moment the internet and the communication came into being and the dual use, civilian use came, and that is when you see mushrooming of technology. So anything you get in, if the end use is dual use, then there are a lot of chances. I can elaborate on these technologies subsequently if there are in question and answer. But for this question, I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, GS Bedi. And we'll have a spin-off webinar just about technology with GS Bedi. That'll be happening next month. Everyone look for the invitation. Suraj, I'm not sure, what in amongst, there's a lot there that you could pick up on or add to. That was a phenomenal overview of the technology, landscape in India. But where have Airbus's contributions to technology happened? What have those been? And or has Airbus benefited from in any way from what's happening in India around technology?
Thank you. And I think Mr. Bedi has covered the whole 9 yards of it, and probably I'll deep dive into a few pockets. But I think as the world's fastest growing aviation market today, I think the Indian aviation sector is going through this significant transformation. And I think it's such wonderful that organizations like ours are embedded with the government and the industry, working together, to put in place all the building blocks that will see us be sustainable in the future. And I think airports are growing at an unprecedented rate here. MROs, we talk about the aerospace supply chain. We can talk billions between Ajay and me. And of course, when you read the stats, 41,000 pilots, 47,000 technicians. And I think that's where our responsibility lies, to accelerate this pace of transformation and do it consistently so that we can secure a sustainable and profitable growth for all organizations. And that's what I wanted to focus on. If you look at the aspect of decarbonization of the aerospace sector, that's going to be the key focus for everyone in aerospace. And it's kind of a make or a break, and probably what we do with this will decide the future or the existence or survival, I would say, of aerospace itself. So what we're doing is we are working on Zero E, which is our hydrogen-powered aircrafts, the various technologies that go into that, the tech, the infrastructure, the changes that need to be made. All of that is being done by engineers, Indian engineers from our engineering center here in Bangalore. When we talk about innovation in this space of SAF, which is kind of made in India SAF, We are working with the Indian government and the Indian players on the HEFA technology. And that is something which is going to be critical, collaborative, moving forward. And of course, our innovation center and our digital center that we have and the capabilities that we work on is going to focus upon the next generation technology for the next generation aircrafts, which will have the next generation people or passengers that will fly in it. And I think we go into more details and specifics as we have this discussion today. Back to you, Mercedes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Suraj. And I want to get back to that topic of the capability centers and how you are partnering with government on those, and we will in a minute. So we'll keep that thought in mind also. Jetendra, moving over to you, and from your lens of Safran, has Safran been able to capitalize on on any of the technology drivers in India? And in particular, I'm thinking around MRO, manufacturing, final assembly in India. But have you seen Safran being able to take advantage of those technology factors to be more competitive globally by taking advantage of the ecosystem in India?
Yeah, Mercedes, you're right. Every OEM has benefited with what's happening in India, and Safran is no exception. Though we are in the country for past 65 plus years, so we have been evolving with the ecosystem as it is evolving and adapting it. So as on today, if you ask, Safran is, yes, increasing its sourcing from the local sources, which have benefited due to this innovative policies and technologies which have been brought in by other OEMs, not only Safran, like the Airbus, Boeings, and the Rolls-Royce and others. So we have our global MRO, the largest global MRO center for LEAP engine being set up in India as on today. That is a testimony to what the Indian ecosystem today in terms of technology front can support. We are also doing a bit on R&D by forking some co-development programs with the Indian DPSUs. One of them, which is there in the public domain and known, is the turboshaft engine development for the next generation helicopters with HAL's manufacturing. And there are a couple of other co-development programs which are in various stages of discussion. So that is another indication of how we are looking at mutually benefiting from the ecosystem, and India benefiting from Safran bringing in technologies alongside what's happening here. On space, as Air Marshal Bedi said, there is lot happening. I think the biggest sector within defense, which is happening today, is defense and aerospace, which is happening today, is the space. I think there is no dearth of technologies and startups which India can provide in that sector. There are 200 plus companies, if I last known numbers, which are working on space technologies, and it could be across services and satellite manufacturing to launch vehicles. But that is where Safran is also actively collaborating with many of these startups, providing them with various components and devices which we manufacture. We have recently done an acquisition in India only to support space technologies in India, directly closer to the customer. And of course, we have a specific engineering services center in India, which is benefiting because of the competitive engineering manpower available in India. Safran Engineering Services is the firm which does some high-end work based on IoT, generative AIs, modeling, simulation, and the routine stuff of design engineering and manufacturing engineering. So, I mean, I can go on and on, but we are definitely co-living the ecosystem right now with the Indian companies.
Wonderful. And I think, for the audience, who are those companies thinking about, how they can come in and, find opportunity in India, that's a really good perspective that you're sharing. Ajay, over to Boeing. How has Boeing reacted to some of these developments in India? I mean, are you more apt you feel to seek partners within India instead of elsewhere across the globe? And I'm thinking Boeing, global Boeing, is global Boeing going and doing partnerships in India around technology instead of going and partnering, with companies in other countries, because the technology capabilities are stronger in India. Are you finding that?
Sure. Thanks, Mercedes, for your question. I'll perhaps answer the partnership part in the second part of my, as I frame my answer. But maybe I'll first touch upon some of the technologies and applications that we are working on in this specific space, not just about designing aircrafts. Of course, we do that. But if we look at, for example, from airline operations, we have, we are developing technologies and tools where airlines can have better management of their spare parts, where they can have a tool which is going to look at the airplane health management, which induces a better part replacement approach, which has more optimized intervals, which improves operations. That's one way of looking at it. We also have crew rostering solutions, because in airlines, it's not only about the aircraft, it's also about the people who work around the aircraft. So we have solutions on that side. We have solutions for the air traffic management part, which is not airlines, but basically the airports. So we have teams sitting out of India who are developing those specific solutions. Not to miss out on the military side of it, there are many contracts, and Suraj would definitely resonate with me, performance-based logistics contracts that we have. So we have, of course, digital applications to have better sustainment of operations, inventory management. But having said that, those are some of the things, of course, we do. What we're also trying to do in terms of engaging with the ecosystem on the technology and application space is that we have something what we call as BUILD, or Boeing University Innovation Leadership Program, where we engage with the larger ecosystem of startups, and we create a mechanism where they can come, share their ideas, and we basically help them nurture it and take it to its logical conclusion. We don't hold the IP, we provide the platform for them to come and discuss this. A good example would be like last year, we had a startup called Spacefield, which is basically operating in the space of rocket propulsion. They've been winners and they've been doing pretty well ever since that. Of course, there's a lot of good work they have done, but we are fortunate to have partnered with them. We were, of course, before the session, we were talking about Phantom Works. How can I not talk about Phantom Works? The team in India is working on, some really cutting edge work where they're doing simulation scenario for future warfare and trying to come up with solutions that can enable or equip the aerospace and defense ecosystem in a more, impactful way. So those are some of the things that we are, of course, looking at as such. In terms of partnerships, I would say that India is definitely a land of opportunities. We have a joint venture with Tata where we manufacture the fuselage of the Apache attack helicopters completely in India. So that's the sole supplier. We have various other partnerships in the supply chain piece, and I will cover that, I guess, later on in the session today. But all I'll say is that based on capability, based on opportunity, based on the right business model that we can come up with, we have not shied away from looking and engaging with partnerships. Maybe I'll just throw a snippet to tell you the size of what we are doing from a supply chain point of view in the partnership space, because we have tier 1, tier 2 suppliers. Over $1 billion worth of goods and services are exported out of India into the global supply chain for Boeing. To just give you the magnitude of where we are. And this is where we are today. We hope to, make it double in a few years. And of course, further up. So back to you.
Fantastic. And Ajay, I appreciate you reminding us about the scale, right? I mean, what India is enormous, and what is happening there is truly, one of those game-changing type of perfect storms that really sort of sow opportunity. So appreciate you sort of underscoring the scale, and then obviously, Boeing is right in the thick of it, being one of the largest, if not the largest, aerospace company in the world. So appreciate you sharing that. I think also the government of India, has also taken notice and is leaning in, and so I'd be very interested, and I think our guests who are listening would also, about government policies and initiatives that are happening that are reinforcing this opportunity in India. And I know there were recent changes to India's acquisition regulations for defense. So it's instead of DPP, the DAP, I think, changes to offsets policy, the self-reliant India, Make in India, investing in capability centers. So there are a lot of government initiatives and reactions to this opportunity as well. Air Marshal Bedi, if we could start with you, again, because you've had this lens of being inside the military, can you walk us through the changes that the Indian government has made in recent years around defense acquisition, around offsets? What effects are those having on the industry in India?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's there have been very, very huge changes, changes in the mindset, changes in the procedures. Sometimes back, if we go a few years back when we were, youngsters in the forces, the defense acquisition was under great secrecy, just because it was defense equipment, etc. You did not share details with too many people. Then emerged a lot of scams. Then, people just put a lid on it, etc. So there was a requirement that these processes and procedures are kind of streamlined. Okay. And that is when this DPP, DAP, defense acquisition procedures or procurement policies, etc., they came into being, and they've been revised, over a number of times, taking feedback from industry that what we thought was right. I mean, half of it I was involved on the other side, and now I'm looking at from the other side. Now, the central point that I wish to drive is the change that you're asking. We incidentally, just 5 days before, we celebrated our Independence Day on 15th August, 77 years of independence. But that was independence, independence from physically, from physical slavery, let's say. Now India is looking at technological independence, that it is independent in its own to build something, whatever it wants and whenever it wants. Okay. Now, when we are looking at that level, the major changes which are coming up, when they started Make in India, they started with, okay, how to say Make in India, because everything is not possible ab initio. You can't straight away start. So they started, interestingly, Indian content, that, okay, 50% of a product must be of Indian content. Now, how to define content for that matter? I mean, if I have a pen in my hand, how do I define its percentage that, what is more important than what, right? Because every part is important. So the easiest way was to define a cost to it, that, okay, if cost-wise, if something cost me $100, then if $50 were on an Indian, content procured spent, then it would suffice to say that 50% is Indian content. Now you see how people get around the thing. Okay, now what happens is, now you say that, okay, it's cost. So I procure something now for $50 from abroad. Okay, and now just to define that Indian content 50%, its default price becomes $100. So I add a few things, I add manpower cost, building cost, some other cost, this cost, that cost. So say this product is costing you $100. So sufficing that 50 is, foreign content and this thing. So people became aware of that this is really not working. And now, fortunately, and with, advancements, what Indian government major change, this was announced about 6 months back, that we've started looking at component level, that you say that, okay, now it's not cost wise, it is that we will look at components of a product and say, is it really, meeting the criteria of 50% Indian content. Now, the advice that I want to give to industry, is that there are a lot of these procedures, IDEX, Indian, that innovation for defense excellence. There are, Aditi program, there is Make in India, Make 1, Make 2, Make 3, which stipulates different percentages of how much government will initiate, etc. But this Make in India, because it is disruptive, if I may call it. There are things happening in a particular way. Now this is disruption, that no, we won't make in India. So people, what they try to do, they try to get around the problem. My advice to them is it's not going to be possible to get around the problem. You'll have to get through the problem. So if you recognize that, okay, this is the thing, now there is no compromise, and help the local startups or local industry actually infusing technology. Okay, I'm happy to know that as per my knowledge, Safran has actually offered India that it can actually give the hot core technology, in engine making, which we are still struggling with. We have our homegrown aircraft, but without the engine, you see. So GE is doing its best, etc. But people are coming forward, realizing the requirement that if you have to do business in India, there is a lot to do, but you will have to recognize this, that you'll have to shed away a bit of inhibitions, that how much you lend, how much you do. So those days of assembling products is over. You will actually have to make things here, and there is a lot to make here, I would say. So this is the core change which will drive the future investments and growth in industry in India. Thank you.
It's spurring a whole other conversation, in my mind. A lot of questions are coming off of that. So I will try to ask some of those, because I'm very curious,
Yes.
how Boeing, Safran, Airbus, in addition to other companies are responding to that, even, outside of India, if they want to, build and sell things in India. But I'm going to move over, Jetendra, I just want to give you a little heads up. I can see you're in motion. It's like, I think you're maybe in a car now. I don't know. It's like an action film. You're an action hero. Thank you for adding some excitement to our webinar. Talk to me from your perspective, and Safran, how have these policies affected your business? And do you think that that's kind of typical for companies operating, foreign companies operating in India? And I think you're on mute.
Yeah, Mercedes, thanks. First of all, apologies. I had to move out and I'm in a car because I got a dinner meeting and I didn't want to miss this webinar as well. So I'm trying to do best of both. Coming back to your question, what Air Marshal Bedi rightly said, that we can actually have a session on what has changed under the policies and the procedures in India for the last 10 years. There has been kind of a revolution, if I may use the word. So we had institutional reforms, we have acquisition reforms, we had ease of doing business, and whatever right could happen to provide enough space for both Indian and foreign companies to operate alongside the DPSUs of the country have been done. Some more things are required to be done, but it will happen. But the popular saying in English language is, when you are in Rome, you need to be Roman, is slightly twisted today in Indian defense and aerospace ecosystem. Is they say, if you want to be in the Indian defense ecosystem, you need to be Indian, in the sense that you need to have a local presence. So the days of doing global sales are little limited, and which most OEMs have understood, and they are operating. Companies like Airbus, Boeing, Safran, and others are doing their bit aligned to the policies. As everybody understands who are veteran in this space, that the policies in defense are mostly country specific, and you cannot really deviate from what has been asked. So towards that, Safran has been a pioneer from very beginning. We had our joint ventures and some of our 100% FDI units in India. We have partnerships. We have all sorts of models which are aligned to the primary aim of the government, that is, try to be self-reliant and try to do as much as possible through India. So that is what, and since you are asking what the foreign OEM should look for is, I think if you are bullish on India and if you are looking at this as a market for future and an opportunity for growth, then I think from a long-term perspective, an Indian presence is more or less mandatory. So if you don't have yet production centers or I'm not talking about sales offices, because that most OEMs have, but if you are having production centers and you are doing Make in India for the world or something, that's an excellent space to be, because we have an added advantage of using the developing skill levels of the Indian human resource. And at the same time, the sourcing issues which are plaguing the OEMs of the world can be resolved if you have an alternate source coming from the Indian ecosystem. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I, Ajay, I would be curious to hear about Boeing's response. Jetendra, you mentioned the Make in India. How is Boeing responding to that?
Sure.
And is it in particular what I'm wondering about, and I think what our audience is potentially wondering about, they may be not in India yet, or they may be thinking about, hey, we've got to get our costs down, or we've got to create, a new capability. Is India a place where we could go and find that talent that's going to give us the edge, globally from a competitive perspective? I'm wondering what is Boeing's feeling about that, and what are you, not to give away any secret sauce or anything like that, but to share some of your insights.
So I will share the secret sauce, which I guess almost everyone knows, but we'll keep it a secret here. The way I look at, let's start with the Indian talent market. The best way to articulate it is that there are 4 value propositions the Indian talent market provides. I call it, instead of EVP as we use it as employee value proposition, I call it IVP, India's value proposition to the world. Number one, where else will you get world quality talent at a very globally competitive price, at scale, with a reasonable level of IP protection? And it's an and function. These are 4 characteristics, and it's an and. The minute you look at this combination, quality at competitive cost, at scale, and at with IP protection, the number of opportunities of talent market where most organizations would want to grow gets considerably truncated or reduced. So India has a very strong value proposition, and we in Boeing were, I would call it as one of the, I won't call it like the first movers, but one of the early adopters to step in. Something which I shared in my introduction when I joined, we were like around 800 people, predominantly in the technology space. And today we are 8 times of that, almost 6,500 people. Out of the 6,500 people that we have today in India, more than 90 to 93% of those are in our Boeing India Engineering and Technology Center, which is basically based out of Bangalore and Chennai. So we have gone ahead and we have core engineering, we have different types of capabilities, right, from mechanical, production, et cetera, and we can cover more on that later on. But just to give you the size of it, from an engineering capability point of view, we would be the largest engineering setup for Boeing outside US. So that is the scale that we have ramped up. And I think there is an opportunity for us to do more as India is able to show more value proposition. When I say value proposition, a lot of organizations come to India thinking it's a cost arbitrage solution that they are looking for. But very quickly, they realize that it is a value driving proposition, and you can move up the value curve with more complex solutions that get developed here. So that's one piece to it. There's one element I would definitely quickly touch upon what we do, apart from everything which is core to our business proposition, is how we're engaging with the larger ecosystem to create a talent pool, which is not just Boeing's benefit, but a benefit that I guess an Airbus, Safran, the entire ecosystem, including our customers our airlines will be able to do. And that's the Sukanya program, which is where we are investing in targeting or focusing on the girl children in schools today, who are today in schools, typically in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And we are trying to ensure that we can provide them right from scholarships to flight training academies and airlines, and provide various types of enable careers for them, where in future, when they get into the workforce, they can aspire to become either airline pilots or in defense. I met a girl from Nagaland a few months back, and I thought she would be interested in an airline sort of thing. And she said no. And Admiral sir, this is, Air Marshal sir, this is for you. She said, I am very specific. I want to fly a military helicopter, an Apache. Okay, so
Great.
a girl from Nagaland aspiring to do that. So the point is, this is how we need to do. So Make in India is not only about the Tata Boeing joint venture I spoke about. It's not only about tier 1, tier 2 suppliers that we are creating. It is about so many other things, which comes under the broad umbrella of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
On behalf of my gender, Ajay, thank you. Thank Boeing. I'm teasing. Suraj, I'm very curious to know, are you seeing kind of something similar to Ajay? And is that Airbus's experience as well?
I think absolutely, Mercedes, and I think if you're in the offset game, I think you're getting it wrong. I think you have to move beyond the offset game and look at the value or the market that India can give you. And I'll come back to that. I'll explain that a little bit more in details. But I think what you need to do is this commitment that you have to developing the entire ecosystem within India, that will be beneficial for all players in the Indian industry. And if you come to manufacturing, aircraft manufacturing particularly, Airbus is the only OEM that will be building not one, but two final assembly lines in India. One in Vadodara for their C295 transport military aircraft, and the second one would be the H125 helicopters, also in India. And the first, I'd say, bird that will roll out from both these final assembly lines would be in 2026. Now, had we not trusted the Indian environment or the ecosystem, like Ajay, even we talk a lot about Make in India, and we are proud to say that every aircraft or helicopter that we manufacture globally has a part that is made in India. And so we see this entire ecosystem of suppliers, of all the value additions that are coming in, so much so that there's a lot of, I would say, innovative value add from the suppliers that we work with. Again, scale close to $1 billion of supply chain from India every year. So that has set that, yes, there is suppliers that can support us in our journey of manufacturing. But I think when I was talking about and saying that we need to look at beyond the offset obligation, is that the H125 helicopters that we will make will be specifically for the market in India. Because I think this is the right moment and the right opportunity, because there's a lot of space. HEMS is something that is not, health emergency medicine supplies is one area that we've not even got into the foyer in India. We talk about law and order. We talk about aerial works. We talk about disaster management. And I think this is where the opportunity is. And I think today, the ecosystem, while we are all working together, we've matured the MRO, we've matured, the manufacturing suppliers to support us in this endeavor of taking it further. And I'm probably not even going to come to talent, because that's a no-brainer.
We will get to talent in just a minute briefly. But I wanted to, Jetendra, I'm worried that we may lose you because I know that you have a competing event. So I want to bring you in here. So this question is for you and then over to Air Marshal Bedi. We've talked a lot about, the ecosystem and it maturing and innovation and advanced development and things. What are flipping the script a little bit, what are the primary challenges that are facing the aerospace and defense sector in your country? And that's for Jetendra, and you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Mercedes. It's a good question because everybody today in India talks about opportunities and hardly anybody touches upon this challenges part of it. Having seen this sector grow the way it has grown in the past 30 years, I think the current challenges, if I may not elaborate too much, first to start with is the production capacity. Though Ajay was mentioning about the scale, but is still and Air Marshal Bedi said some time back that the amount of production capacity we need is humongous because of the unstable geopolitical environment around India, and the Indian Army needs every year growing. So first and foremost is production capacity, which is a challenge with both at the DPSU side and the private sector side. So we need additional capex side budget from the government to support this, and then the industry to invest and build more capacity just for India. And I'm not even talking about for global things. So that was the first point which I would like to place on record. The second one is, there is hardly any Indian private sector industry which has serious investments in R&D, tech kind of a research. So design and manufacturing side, the manufacturing side, yes, the industry is catching up. It has the capability and the capacity to do so. But on the design side, I think much desires to be done. So license manufacturing is the order of the day. And if Indian ecosystem has to really grow to some standard, which is at a global level, then I think the design side has to be strengthened. So these are the two main challenges. And then, of course, from the government side, a bit of, what is the policy should be actually seen in letter and spirit. Many often than that, we make good policies, but then we get stuck to the letter part of it. So that is one change and the challenge which results in delays and then frustration at the industry level and all comes in. Mostly I'm talking about the Indian industry part. And of course, we have, like anywhere else in the world, we have a monopoly as a single buyer system. So the Ministry of Defense, who makes the policy, is also the ultimate customer. So maybe that creates a bit of a market distortion and creates some kind of a challenge for the industry because, there is no global market today for Indian industry. I'm talking from an Indian industry perspective, not global OEMs. So they cannot have ready inventory, so they lose out on some opportunities. So maybe there has to be a little more of policy side changes to make Indian industry also globally competitive. Some other aspects I think Air Marshal Bedi will touch upon. I will leave it at this right now.
Thank you. No, that's very well summed up. I would just say, some of the challenges, you're essentially asking what are the challenges being faced by anyone to come to India and perform, right? Now, I think the first feeling is that probably private industry is not getting the level playing field along with the government industry, because you always get opportunity. And like when we grew, when you said, that, okay, I want a particular piece of equipment, okay, and it's available outside. And the joke was that file would move and they will ask DRDO, our DPSUs, can you make it? And answer is 100 out of 100 times, yes, we will make it. That derails the whole process. Now, whether they make it or not make it, accountability has not been there for quite some time, which is changing. And I am aware that, now the PMO itself monitors the delays, the non-performing DPSUs, and they're taking them to very, very hard task. So slowly things will change. Then there is another issue is cultural change. I'll tell you, I have interacted very, very closely with BAE Systems, and Rolls-Royce while I was in the UK, because we had Hawks operating, and we had, a whole lot of engines from Rolls-Royce for our various aircraft. And they would often complain about the cultural, way the quality that, the quality control is not very good, the way you perform, or your workshops, your hangars, these things are not of that class. Now, the problem is that India, with its population, like when I opened my eyes, we were already touching 100 crores. Now we are 140 crores or something. So the manufacturers here were not really bothered about quality, because they said that even if 20% of the people bought your product, you had a market bigger than the Europe. So what happens is there was no competition to be very good, qualitatively. So now, but when it comes to avionics and airspace, this is becoming a challenge. The people who come from outside just have to understand this, that it is not something, which is intentionally being done. You just have to overcome it. So probably if you enforce your standards, invest a little time in, educating people, and things are changing. Those old lot is, going, and new generation is coming up. They are very tech savvy. They read, they watch international space. So I think, things will change. And this trust issue, this is another thing. Probably, we are still in the hangover of East India Company, that whenever someone is coming, you are looking at it with a different eye, that probably, what is he going to gain out of it, rather than thinking that what is he bringing for us. And R&D, very, very valid point. Our private industry is just not playing ball, and even the government is looking at a finished product. Like, there is the DAP and DPP that you talked, and I have said it in many seminars, does not cater for, or does not have any provision to buy concepts. Like, they always want to see the product, that, okay, what do you have? And they say that even when they give money, they will give on the progress of the product. So if I say I want to make this particular thing, they said, okay, we'll give you so much, let's say $100. I will give you 20 when you're 20% complete, when you're 40. So where is the R&D involved? So for R&D, an entrepreneur has to invest completely his money, which is a problem. The startups are, running from pillar to post to just about sustain. And then you ask him that you invest in R&D. This is where there is a bit of challenge. So if the industry from outside can support this, with a bit of money to, encourage R&D in one particular, maybe it's the smallest of thing, you don't have to look at 100 things to do research and development, and just pick up one small thing, propeller of a drone, you make up a small battery, you say, okay, this startup I will support, I will incubate startup, this thing, and you do R&D, we will support you. And this is how I think the wheels will roll, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that is such great insight. And to the audience, I apologize. I've failed as a moderator to not allow enough time for questions. Please feel free to put those in the chat now, or to send those to the email in the invitation, the RSVP email. We will get those questions to our panelists and get the answers back out to you. To close, I'm wondering if we can go around the room really quickly, for the folks that are listening, from your perspectives, and Ajay, I'll start with you, then Suraj, Jetendra, and GS Bedi. What strategies should global aerospace and defense companies be considering when looking to engage or invest in India?
Sure.
Ajay.
I'll try to make it quick, Mercedes. Number one, as I said earlier, do not look at India as a cost arbitrage solution. India is very clearly a value driver, and you can actually do more complex or high complex work. So that's one. Second, India has the opportunity, right from what I shared about the talent marketplace, those 4 value propositions. There is immense capacity to scale up and invest in the supply chain field. There are enough and more vendors between some of the organizations, my fellow panelists are organizations, and many more. There's a lot of work and investment that is already happening. So there is a certain level of maturity with which we are doing it. And last but not the least is that, that entire demographic dividend that India has, there is a lot of agility and this hunger to do more amongst the population. So you can actually tap into that. That's how I would put it.
Thank you. Suraj, what do you
So,
think?
all things said and done, I think Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat is here to stay. And I think that's the future of India. That's the political narrative. And what one needs to do is when they are choosing their prime Indian partners, to do it with caution, because it is vital for this strategic partnership to be put in place in the right way for success. And I think India is great, but it is also a very difficult market. And patience is something that you need to have. And I think that's where your Indian right selected partner will help you navigate the waters in India. Back to you, Mercedes.
Thank you. Jetendra, what from your perspective?
Yeah, just two things new which I can add is as a strategy, please look at it as a long-term perspective. Have faith in the ecosystem. I am sure with my experience, it is likely to be much, much better in the coming years. So have long-term perspective of the country. Second is local presence, as I said, is mandatory if you really want to succeed in India. Of course, if you're looking for global space doing through India, that's a different story. But the cost effective and efficient sources, you can today come and develop in India. So look at your local presence here, look at long-term perspective.
Wonderful. And finally, Air Marshal Bedi, what do you see as the what strategic
Thank you.
advice would you give?
In just one line, just try to create in India, not dump in India.
Perfect. Anand,
That's
thank
all.
you so much for bringing these wonderful guests together today. We can't thank you enough. This has been a phenomenal discussion. I'll turn it over to you to close out.
Thanks, Mercedes. I think it's been a very insightful discussion given the energy and the scale of topic. Maybe we need another session for it, but we'll park it for some other day. But once again, I would like to thank all our panelists to take time out to join us, and also to our audience who have been kind enough for joining us from various time zones. I hope you have benefited from this session. I would also like to thank our support team who have been sitting in the background patiently, and with all the energy and the effort that has gone through the coordinating this entire event. Thank you so much for your time. We are going to collate notes across the session, possibly also try and answer some of the questions which didn't get answered today, and also be sharing the link of the recorded session for the ones you have missed. That's pretty much it. So thank you so much for your time. On behalf of my team in India, thank you very much. Mercedes, over to you.
Thank you again, everyone. Ajay, Suraj, Jetendra, GS Bedi. Thank you so much. I know it's not always easy to carve out the time for these discussions, but I can assure you that everyone listening has really enjoyed this time. I know I have, and I know Anand and I will be putting our heads together about all of the additional follow-up coming out of this. So thank you so much for your time, and look forward to following up.